Welcome to the 29th Annual Seattle Hempfest, everyone. It is my great pleasure and privilege to be able to moderate the Hemp Building U.S. Innovations and Supplies in Critical Times panel, particularly given our panelists. We have with us here today hemp veteran Lawrence Serbin, who is the founder and president of both Hemp Traders and Cannagrove. We have Ms. Saba Tesfay from the National Board of Directors of the U.S. Hemp Building Association. And we have Greg Wilson, founder and CEO of Fibonacci, or Hempwood, which is taking the world by storm, as is Cannagrove. Let's start, if we could, with just a quick introduction from each of our panelists, and then we'll get right into the incredible information that these folks have to offer. Could we start with Larry? You're a veteran to Seattle Hempfest, but remind all of our viewers who you are and what it is you're doing.
Yeah, thank you, Joy. My name is Lawrence Serbin. I am the president and owner of Hemp Traders. We've been in business since 1994, specializing in hemp fiber products, specifically or mostly textile products, but we also sell things like twine, yarn, rope, webbing, even raw fiber. And a couple of years ago, I also founded a new company called Cannagrove to make hemp particle board, or particle board from hemp. So that's what I do. I'm also the former president of the Hemp Industries Association, and I was also on the Industrial Hemp Advisory Board for California for 3 years.
And in fact, chaired the California
Yes.
Department of Food and Agriculture's Industrial Hemp Advisory Board. And Cannagrove is also, of course, a resource not just for the amazing American-grown, American-made hemp board, but also hemp wool insulation, herds and binder for hempcrete, not to mention all of the textiles for interior design at Hemp Traders. So thank you for all you do and continue to do, groundbreaker.
All right, well, thank you, Joy.
Miss Saba, boy, is Hemp Building lucky to have your energy, sister. Thank you so much for joining the U.S. Hemp Building Association and taking on such an important leadership role. Let's talk a little bit about what you've done throughout the world and your vision.
Awesome. Thank you, Joy. It's an honor to be participating now at this level, being an environmental advocate for plenty of years. My focus has been a lot on sustainable and regenerative solutions, circular economies, things that focus on social as well as environmental justice. So being a board member of the USHBA, which is the U.S. Hemp Building Association, a member-based organization, it's a wonderful opportunity to bring farmers, processors, individuals, contractors, all those together, hemp building professionals, projects, materials, all in one place. So I'm here to advocate and organize in any way that I can. And I'm really happy to participate today and in this industry. Thank you.
Thank you back, sort of chopping the wood and carrying the water to build that infrastructure and build those systems so that the hemp building vision and the hemp vision can be made a reality. Somebody's got to do that tedious work. And man, do we have a group of panelists who do that tedious work for us. Thank you, Saba. Greg Wilson, brother, you know you are taking the whole hemp industry by storm with dimensional lumber and flooring and furniture kits and wood turning. It's picture frames. Amazing what it is you're doing at Fibonacci and Hempwood. Tell us a little bit about yourself, sir.
Okay, well, thanks for having me here. My name is Greg Wilson. I'm just a normal guy. I make rectangular logs out of various renewable resources. So it started out with bamboo some years ago. We started doing recycling woods all over Europe and Australia. And then finally, when hemp became a legal thing in 2014, it made sense for us to risk it all and set up a hempwood plant here in West Kentucky. So we're making dimensional lumber here. We do flooring, we do furniture, we do picture frames, we do what we call home goods and hobby woods. The biggest technology actually that has come from this, because we already knew that hemp would work for what we were doing, it just wasn't legal. and we'd studied it in nanotech labs over a decade ago, is we're actually using eco-friendly binders as well in our product. So there is no formaldehyde, which is found in 80 or 90% of your building materials. There's also no isocyanates in it either, which are kind of the next rung down. We're using a soy-based adhesive similar to what you find in pure bond plywood. And then there's some different special additives and some creative science that goes into it to actually make it work together. But the general premise of what we do is we take a 4-month-old hemp plant. We use the entire stalk instead of just the hurd or the fiber. We don't decorticate it. We use the whole stalk. We have to break open the cell structure of it. We impregnate it with proteins from soybeans, actually to boost up the soybean protein content. And then we spray it with an organic acid that causes the cross-linking agent to it. We dry it out to something similar to biomimicry. So like a log, when you cut it down, you always need it to be less than 20% moisture content before you are able to plane it and cut it so it doesn't crack. So we dry our materials down to less than 20% moisture content, and then we compress it into what's called a cant in the wood industry. So it's essentially a 6x6 that then we're able to mill into lumber that outperforms 200-year-old tropical hardwoods.
I mean, I don't like to use the word magic or miracle when it comes to hemp because they're not very scientific or data-driven words. And I like for us to be accurate and scientific, but man, this biomimicry and what you have been able to create with science that you learned some time ago is amazing. And we all want hemp wood in our homes, in our projects, some form of it anywhere. I'm getting pictures all the time. Look at the hemp wood table I just made, and just tremendous stuff, Greg. And we'll learn more about that in a few minutes. Ms. Saba, in terms of where we're at right now, between climate problems, between housing issues, is there some data that you may want to share with us just around building crises or any type of data that you may have garnered around why it is that hemp construction is in crisis, and why and how hemp construction is really a solution for us, not just in the United States, but all around the world?
Definitely, most definitely, yeah. When we're looking at the biggest industries such as oil, lumber, cotton, general agricultural practices that can definitely use improvement, the list of the detriment is just like huge. And when it comes to construction, it's pretty mind-boggling with certain statistics that state that construction is actually causes 4 times more pollution than the air travel industry. So it's one of our biggest polluters, contributes to about 50% of the landfill waste, 40% of drinking water pollution, 23% of air pollution, and not to mention all the health issues that come into place with these toxic and cheap materials that are put into the homes nowadays, mainly putting low income or, people of color or, affordable housing projects at risk due to this, cheap and fast methods without looking for longer term solutions. So, looking at climate change and looking at the issues that we face, we wouldn't really think about the construction industry, but it's actually, a huge one. So hemp, as we know, is the answer, right? It's the answer for so many different things, but to realize like how impactful building a house with hemp or using, local and sustainable materials can make, it's just immense. So yeah, it's from seed to hundreds of years down the road. Hemp continues to sequester carbon. It's durable. If you're new to hempcrete or hemp lime, depending on what it's referred to, it's a mix of hemp hurd, which is the shiv, the inner core, which is somewhat of a byproduct from the fiber. The fiber
co-product.
Love it. Yes, it is. And that's mixed with a lime blend, hydraulic lime, hydrated lime, depending on your region. And this creates a limestone sort of structure. You would need steel or lumber framing. So, but it's just I mean, I'm sure we'll talk more about the benefits of hempcrete and hemp
Yes.
lime and how it regulates and all that good stuff. But I mean, construction industry is a huge avenue in which we can find these solutions and use hemp to do it.
In a big way. And when we talk about this affordable housing or socioeconomically deprived regions, neighborhoods, indigenous tribal situations, we're also talking about building materials. They're temporary, they're off-gassing, as you said, they're toxic. They perform poorly. They create sick building syndrome with their sealed up envelopes and then cause very poor indoor air quality, which affects our health. So why on earth? Why are we building with these materials? And at what point as a society, right, did we decide to accept 40-year-old buildings when we can make buildings that last hundreds of years and perform superiorly and create optimal indoor air quality? So thank you for that. Now, Larry, let's talk about your journey with Canna Grove, what hemp boards is great for, and then if we could also go into even as to be able to use it as subflooring and the things we should be concerned about as we order the right thickness for that, and then what you have to offer for hempcrete materials, sir.
All right, thank you, Joy. The journey for hemp board has been very long. It actually started around 2005, about 15 years ago. I had heard of the potential for hemp to be able to make particle board, and I was already working in China buying materials, so I went over there and actually found somebody to make particle board for me with the hemp, and it actually worked out. And I was like blown away. The first try it actually worked. So it just made a little bit, brought it back home, and one of the first questions I got from people was, well, is there any formaldehyde in it? And I actually didn't even know, because I didn't even ask them how to build it or anything. So I went, well, I better test it. So I took it to a lab, and there was so much formaldehyde in it that it actually went off the charts, and they couldn't even list the formaldehyde that was in it. So pretty quickly, I realized that people didn't want formaldehyde in their particle boards. So I went back to China, tried to talk to them, asked them to do it another way. They wouldn't budge. They weren't going to do it any different way than what they were already using. So I had to find another supplier, and they were able to get particle board that had what was considered a low formaldehyde binder. And that binder was supposed to be environmental, and then it passed all these European agencies for environmental regulation. So I used that one, and indeed, it was a lot lower fumes that were in it. Yet people did not, even when I tried to sell that, nobody wanted formaldehyde in it, even a little bit. Nobody wanted it. So it took me a few more years, and finally around 2008, I was able to develop a board that had no formaldehyde in it. And we were ready to get going, and the factory I was working with went out of business. So over there. So it had nothing to do with me, it was just I was working with a smaller factory. So after a few attempts of trying to get it working in China, I ended up having to give up because I just couldn't find a factory that was willing to work with me. But then when we finally legalized hemp in the United States, I thought I'd try this again. And fortunately, I was able to find a factory here in the US, and we were able to make the board, the hemp board, free from any formaldehyde or for the most part, any harmful chemicals. Now, particle board, the different, or I should say, the term for all these products that are being made is referred to as engineered wood products. That's basically you're taking a product from wood and you're engineering it to get certain features that you want to have in it. And in this case, we're taking that same technology and we're applying it to hemp. So it's like engineered hemp products or engineered hemp fiber. But each product you make has a different use and has a different purpose for it. Whether it's going to be the floorboard or a wall or a support beam, all of these have different uses. So the one that we were making recently, the particle board, these come in 4x8 sheets. They're usually anywhere from about a half an inch thick to about an inch and a quarter thick. They're usually used in In building, they'd be used for subflooring. So that would be the area that would be above the foundation, but below the actual floor, whether it's bamboo or hemp wood or anything else you would use. It's also used for doors, are made out of particle board. All the doors in the house have that as the core. Another option is all the shelving and all the cabinets use particle board. So a big part, shelving, furniture, and even actual furniture uses particle board. So there are quite a lot of uses, but it's not used for everything. For example, you can't use it on the outside of a house. It's basically indoor only, and it's not cannot really be used as a support beam. It's not a load-bearing board. But it is 100% hemp, and by using that, we're getting away from trees and getting away from the harmful chemicals. And it also opens the door to similar products like the medium density fiber board and possibly other things for the future.
Absolutely. No, and it's great for cabinets, for bookshelves, all kinds of different furniture that it can be made with. And boy, when we see that MDF come online, one of our mutually favorite people, Dave Sieber of Southern Oregon, a pioneer in the hemp movement, who created really the first hemp MDF here.
Yes.
I'm sitting here in Seattle, in Washington State University in 1995. And
right. Yeah, that was my original inspiration to do it. I had seen that they were able to do it. So.
Yep. It can be done. And listening to your journey, if folks, just to realize the pioneers that have gone through all of the steps and, think of the trips to China and all of that, only to finally have the company go out of business. I remember that tree-free board. I had so many samples of that tree-free board. And now here we are, American-made hemp board. And did you make a batch this year that was American-grown hemp?
Well, the original one was also American grown. We did a batch about a year ago, or a little over a year ago, and that was all American. And then we were planning to do another batch this year, but we ran into the whole COVID-19 thing, which has put a hold on a lot of things.
Yes, indeed. Well, Greg, I know you probably have had, but boy, do you adapt. In hemp, we adapt. And something tells me the folks at Fibonacci and Hempwood are adapting like rock stars to the challenges that COVID is putting in front of you. Tell us a little bit about the journey of how Hempwood started. And particularly, I love that relationship with Murray State and some exciting things about what's happening with Hempboard right now. Hempwood right now, excuse me.
So the journey started in 2000. In the year 2000, I was getting into college and studying engineering, or looking to study engineering, and my reading and writing skills were not great. And so they asked if I spoke a second language, at which time I said, yeah, I studied some, but I hadn't really taken anything serious. And I saw China was joining the World Trade Organization at that time. So I started studying Chinese, and I figured an engineer who can speak Chinese can kind of write his own ticket. So when I graduated, I was working in building materials, doing vinyl siding for one internship, and then engineered oak flooring for the other. And I sold my car and bought a plane ticket and moved to China, and ended up helping develop the bamboo industry there. So I got involved in building 53 bamboo plants and wrote the patents and actually the algorithm of how you make strand woven bamboo, starting, I guess, in 2003 over there. And I ended up living in China for 14 years. Hey, baby, you want to come here? Here's my wife. I ended up picking her up in China too. She's our office manager here.
Hello, Ms. Wilson. Thank you for the tremendous work you do.
She keeps us all in line here. It's a bunch of men running around, and she comes in and cracks the whip on us.
Good job, sister. Yeah. Right on. Right. Keep that hemp wood coming.
We actually set up, the Chinese government deemed our bamboo patents to be a monopoly in 2009, 2008 and 9. Okay. And so my boss at that company actually looked to me and said, uh-oh, we're in trouble. You better find some new raw materials we can put into this process. And so it's an algorithm we wrote 15, 20 years ago that you can put all different types of raw materials into it. You can even recycle woods and put it into this process. And so it started with the bamboo, which actually became $1 billion a year industry, did really, really well. But when the patents were deemed a monopoly, then there ended up being 120 different suppliers of it. I was living in the bamboo forest at one point for 7 years over there.
Oh my God.
And then it turned into something called strand woven eucalyptus, which we still sell across the United States everywhere. And it's a fast growing eucalyptus tree that grows in the south of China. It was actually planted by the Australians in the 70s and 80s when China was kind of opening up in order to help stop mudslides from the typhoons. So then we started building these facilities making strand woven eucalyptus in the south of China. And I left that company. I got the bright idea and I went to business school and said I could do it on my own.
You went to Harvard Business School, Mr. Humble.
Yes. And so what it came down to was I left that company. I had a non-compete. So I started doing some other consulting work. And the first day my non-compete was up, then the Forestry Department of Tasmania gave me a call. And they said, you were down here looking at setting up a strand woven eucalyptus facility. We've got a different project. Can you work on it as a contractor? So that kind of pulled me back into the green building materials industry. And that was, I guess, 2016, maybe?
Okay.
At which point I'd set up a nanotech lab at Flinders University in Australia and at Zhejiang University in China.
Wow.
And so with that nanotech lab, we tested all these different raw materials and hemp was one of them. So I called it weedwood at the time. I had no idea. I'm not really the hemp guy. I'm the environmental guy. I'm a bow hunter, so I need to have an oak tree where I can hang my tree stand.
Right.
I love the woods. I love hiking. I love camping, those type of things. So getting back to it, we came up with what's called Smart Oak, which is a recycled Tasmanian oak product that we make in Tasmania. Due to climate change, our factory burned down earlier this year, so that's not real great.
So
But
sorry.
it's still not operational. And where we're setting up a new hempwood facility in Oregon, actually, we're looking in the Prineville area, where I was out there 3 weeks ago. We do a lot of work with Oregon State University and Murray State here. And so that area was on fire as well, where we're looking at setting up facilities in Oregon. So it's kind of duck and move and adapt and do whatever you can. But hempwood came about when the Farm Bill passed in 2014 and people started mentioning it to me. And a bunch of the big customers from the bamboo industry were interested in it, but they weren't allowed to do anything in it because they were regulated by federal law. So the lack of SEC regulation for an entrepreneur, because I don't take money from big capital or Wall Street or whatever that is. So I could go and just file patents on how to make hempwood and spend a couple years developing it and improving it and modifying it. So when the 2018 grow season came around, it was kind of time to push the chips all in. And so we've built a factory. You can actually see I'm here every day, 6 a.m. till 9 p.m.
Wow.
There's the big press right outside my window.
Wow.
We're making hempwood 6 days a week. We make all types of stuff out of it. I mean, you can go from, we've got kitchen cabinet doors to flooring. We make all this stuff here in Murray, Kentucky. We've even got companies over in Arkansas making duck calls out of it. And I mean, you name it. There's knife handles and pens and wood walls and flooring and
Tables.
well, there's a couple of them right there, a couple of
Wow.
in our office. There's picture frames right here. Essentially, we're trying to replace tropical hardwoods and or domestic hardwoods. So hempwood is a interior, non-structural, face grade lumber. So if you would make it out of white oak, we are competitive with white oak or outperform white oak in its technical aspects. And we're right neck and neck with it in price. So it's essentially the green option to oak.
That's American ingenuity and hemp ingenuity happening right there, folks, where we're right in the plant with him. Just incredible stuff. And we all want some piece of hempwood. Whatever it is we can afford, us hempsters, we want hempwood in our home. Miss Saba, when it comes to the infrastructure, as you well know, because I've done so much training with hemp technologies and work with Greg Flaval and Andrea Herman. And so I get calls all the time because they Google and they associate me due to search engine optimization with hemp technologies, and they want to build a hempcrete project. And then, of course, folks who don't realize the chopping of the wood and the carrying of the water think, who's the local guy that I can call to do my hempcrete project, without realizing, well, your general contractor and your architect probably going to have to work with the hempcrete specialist, and there's going to be a lot of Zoom, and then someone's going to have to fly in to get the hemp in the walls. But you don't just call your local hempcrete guy, because they don't exist. Could you explain to us maybe some of the calls that the USHBA gets, or some of the projects that you're hoping to take on, and really the status of that infrastructure, where we're at in the United States right now in terms of at the beginning?
Definitely. So the USHBA is currently working with the ASTM, which is the American Standard for Testing of Materials, to do the testing required for ICC, which is International Certifications, International Code Council, to get certification so that some form of hempcrete is code that can be accepted by builders and contractors throughout the nation. Because right now we're working on a state-by-state basis. Like you mentioned, contractors need to come in and get specific projects approved, but we want to be able to have at least one formula certified so that it can become more accepted as a building material. We can start training contractors, architects, builders to be able to use this material. So with that, that's somewhat of our first step, as much as all these other, businesses are booming and moving forward. We're growing since 2018, so it's an interesting thing. But at the same time, we do need to be able to create that supply chain, and preferably local. So with the USHBA, we're in the process of creating the infrastructure to be able to have maps on our website in which those local companies that might have hurd or lime or hemp wood, any of these materials more accessible, that individuals can then check on our website and find the suppliers. So it's kind of which comes first, chicken or the egg. We'll see the industry, but evolve and grow, knowing how much hemp will need to be grown, processed, all of those types of things. But the main thing which I have found being a part of the USHBA is that having a centralized unit and unity in the process is important. So that's what our organization is working on now. We just elected a brand new board, so we're looking to do a lot more within the next year. So hopefully we'll be able to have a central location where all different businesses can be involved to help the average Joe find those materials.
And get that project done. Yes, I know it was really the interim founding board that got the organization up and running, and you just had your election for sort of the first fully seated membership voted in board. It's a young organization, and I know with a tremendous vision and mission, but gaining so much traction. And there are just some wonderful people lending their energy to the organization. And it obviously is going to play a really important role. And I think also it's probably important to make sure that our viewers understand that hempcrete, if we could go back and rename it, we probably would call it hemp fill or hemp solation, because this idea of crete gives people the misimpression that it's a substitute for concrete. And don't get me wrong, viewers, absolutely, hemp hurd, that inner woody core, can be put into concrete, and it's less Portland cement and more hemp, so it's going to be a more environmentally friendly product in that respect. But hempcrete is not concrete, and it's a living, breathing wall system, essentially. So the foundation of your hempcrete home would actually be concrete. It wouldn't be hempcrete, because then it wouldn't maintain its mold, rot, and pest resistance qualities. Hempcrete provides the optimal indoor air quality, and it is mold, rot, pest, and fire resistant. It lasts hundreds of years, and indeed, it's non-structural, as Saba said at the beginning, needs that steel or timber framing, or we're actually starting to see R&D around hemp biocomposite framing. But we're also starting to see R&D around structural hempcrete in the form of blocks and other things, which I think is fascinating. And that brings me to Larry. So Larry, can you tell us about the hurd that you sell, the binder that you sell, and and by the way, if while we're doing that, Miss Saba, if you wouldn't mind, and you probably already have this, on the members of the USHBA, of course, that run along that ticker at the bottom of the homepage, if we could give our viewers a list, because we want to make sure they know the supplies, but also of the service providers. So maybe some of the USHBA building members, if you could gather those for the next round for you of service providers and suppliers. And with that, Larry, could you tell us about the hempcrete supplies that you sell and your hempcrete kit?
Okay. All right. Well, I'll talk a little bit about just the overall supply of fiber that's needed, whether it's for hempcrete, whether it's for our hemp boards or hemp wood or anything like that. And the biggest problem we've had all these years has been, first, legality. It's been illegal. Now that it's legal, we're running into the problem of most people jumped into hemp and got into CBD. And so there's a lot of CBD plants, and they're left over with leftover stalks. Very few people actually grew for fiber over the last couple of years. So that's been an issue. So there's not a lot of hemp fiber that's out there. I mean, even right now, I have a problem getting hemp hurd, from people. We can import it, but there's also, we want to get it. People want American grown hemp fiber. But one of the biggest issues is, in order to get the fiber, you need to be able to do usually decortication or some sort of treatment, cutting down the stalks, chopping it, doing something to get it into a form that it will work with a processor, and who can work with it. And then the distance of how far away the processor is. If somebody is in one city, it's usually not economical for them to try to sell hemp to somebody who's more than maybe 50 miles away or 100 miles away, probably at the most. You want that distance from the farmer to the processor to be as little as possible to lower the cost of the raw materials. And that's probably been, for everyone involved in the building industry, one of the big hindrances of it. Another problem overall then is also the distribution in terms of, with the fabric, I can ship little bits to people here and there. It's not a problem. But if you want to ship people hempcrete, or the raw material for hempcrete, that has to go by a trucking company. It's not so easy. It's very has a lot of volume, and fairly heavy. It takes up a lot of air as well with raw material. And then the board that we make, and I'm sure the hemp wood is also very heavy. So it's not easy to ship these things around the country. You need local distribution for a lot of this hemp building industry to work out.
Right. Mm-hmm. It's logistics are everything with hemp. Ultimately, as we often talk about, we want to see processing facilities within every 50 to 100 square miles of a hemp biomass feedstock in order to make this efficient and economical. And yet here we are putting one foot in front of the other and getting it done with the infrastructure we have as it builds. Build it and they will come, I say to the investors, especially the ones that can wait 5 years for some type of a return on that investment. And the type of binder that you sell along with the hurd, that is a hydrated lime binder? And
it's a lime binder. I use one, I'm trying to remember, I get it from Sergi. if you don't remember his
Sergey Kovalenkov.
Fifth Element, that's the name of the product. So I buy the Fifth Element one. It's specifically made for doing hempcrete.
Excellent. And the kit that you sell, what does that make, a sample block? I've often done those in my workshops.
So many people wanted samples of hempcrete that I finally decided we would make our own little sample kit. So, we got a little bit of the lime, some of the hemp hurd, put it, packaged it, put it in a box with directions. The only other ingredient would be water. So, people can make their own little block out of it, but it's surprisingly popular. People really like to play with it.
It is not surprising to me at all. Believe me, we tried to do that with Hemp Technologies, a little leaner staff, a little spread out throughout the globe, so not as easy. You've got that wonderful Hemp Traders infrastructure already in place with some employees, and so we're able to get that done. And thank you for filling that need, because it's unbelievable how many requests for the sample kit. And again, people sometimes call, they just want a sample block, but I love that you're saying, why do you want a block when you can actually get your hands in hempcrete and learn to love it? I'm a little crazy, everyone knows that, but one of my favorite smells in the entire world is curing hempcrete. And so after the workshops I do, I'll take my little blocks and put them in the smallest bathroom and turn the heat on and close the door. And then an hour later, I walk into the bathroom and it's curing hempcrete. I love the lime. I just am in love with lime as much as I am with hemp. It's amazing. Now, Mr. Wilson, I'd love us to be able to share with the viewers the certifications that Hempwood has gained, because this is some pretty brag-worthy stuff. And if you could also share, obviously you work with the different celluloses, bamboo, eucalyptus, oak, as you know, but I know you have found some unique things about hemp. So if you could share with us your certifications and what's unique about hemp and why it works so well with biomimicry.
Oh yeah, sure. So the whole secret to what we do in our patented process, we have trademarks on the word Hempwood, on the logo in the United States, Canada, the EU, and Australia. I can speak openly about it, but it's been a 10-year process of getting all this stuff done. We have our ASTM standards completed for our lumber as well as for our flooring and furniture. So the hardness ASTM standards is the Janka rating. It comes in about 25% harder than hickory, which is the hardest domestic oak. Wow. The density that we have is similar to Brazilian cherry. So you're talking about 850 to 900 kilos per cubic meter of your absolute density, which actually determines what the hardness is. Our company's name is Fibonacci because we use the Fibonacci sequence, which is what nature uses in making all of its wood and trees and plants and everything like that. But we use that in our compression ratio. And that's how we get our hardness and our stability, which also then turns into the density and all the final attributes of the product. Your density determines your fire ratings. We have our ASTM standards for fire rating. When it's really, really dense, the flammability is really, really low. And actually the smoke smoldering test that you do for your ASTM standards as well ends up being very, very low because of how dense it is. And because it has a resin in it, it doesn't burn nor smoke like your normal softwoods. It's more like your tropical hardwoods, which have great fire ratings. For our flooring, you get into your different coatings that you can use. Right now, we go with the biggest and the best, which is Bona, and our abrasion resistance and scratch resistance are also your ASTM 1037s, but it has the highest peak performance that you can have for a commercial rating for a wood floor, for slip resistance as well. And we're adding no formaldehyde or no VOCs added to hempwood. Therefore, it's carb 2 compliant as well as TOFA. So it's essentially took what we did with all the different wood materials or different flooring materials that we've done or built over the last 20 years and send our stuff to the same testing laboratories to get our results for it. Some of the really unique attributes of the product that we found with this is the first time we've done, just like Lawrence was talking about, non-formaldehyde. Having a non-formaldehyde glue is about the most difficult thing you can do. Phenyl formaldehyde works all day, every day, and twice on Sunday. it cost a quarter of the price, and somebody had enough money to pay off CARB 2 to get it exempt from their California Air Regents Board emissions test. I don't know, I can't prove that, but I can say that it is labeled as a phenolic resin instead of phenol formaldehyde, and that it was deemed to be excluded because there was no exterior use adhesives that you could find. And so they gave it an exemption where they pulled out urea formaldehyde, which is the other formaldehyde that's used commonly. So that's how it kind of got exempted, and you see phenol formaldehyde in a lot of your plywoods and things like that. But it's going to be removed from the market, and it is moving in that direction, absolutely. So when we were doing this project, we said, well, if you're making something in the United States, formaldehyde's not good for your workers. And if it's not good for your workers, then it's not going to be good in your home, because you're putting a exterior quality PF glue inside of your house. And it's the same thing and problem and issue that you're seeing with vinyl flooring right now. Vinyl flooring is a petroleum-based flooring that has VOC emissions that are deemed acceptable for exterior use, but all of a sudden somebody figured out how to make it look like wood. And so now it's 20% of the total flooring market.
Wow.
Going to be a problem at some point, because that's where your sick home syndrome comes from. And I
Sit
worked
there
in
and
vinyl. I
gonna
worked
sit-
in.
sorry.
No, continue.
Sit there and off gas in our homes, on our floors, essentially.
Yep. So if you like to close your windows, it's a bad idea. But that's where it all comes from, is someone comes up with something that works better, but it's typically for an exterior use, petroleum based. And then it gets migrated into an interior use, where when you have a sealed home or a sealed envelope that you have for your building, then all of a sudden you're just breathing that in. And so we've gone to extreme measures to avoid that by using a soy-based glue. And it's actually based off of the concoction that you use for your Pure Bond plywood. So we worked with the inventors of Pure Bond plywood. We took the soy-based adhesive. We've modified that to fit our process. They're very good. Those scientists are crazy smart. Here we just make rectangular logs, but we take the science and we try to engineer it into something at our plant. So
Boy,
that's kind of where this came from. But the soy flour actually acts like a wood filler that you're incorporating into your product. So the biggest surprise about hemp wood is that it sands smoother than what that sandpaper would do to a regular softwood or hardwood. So if you're sanding a piece of oak, you see your little divots and dents and grains and things like that. Whereas because we're compressing it with 3,000 tons of pressure, and it already has this soy adhesive inside of there, which is, it makes the total product 10% soy flour, then it's like you're putting a wood fill into it, and it sands a lot smoother than you would think.
I mean, it's the gift that keeps on giving, hemp, in so many ways. And as it turns out, we are running out of time with this incredible Green Renaissance repertoire of offerings that Seattle Hempfest is giving. And in the closing time that we have, I first want to say thank you so much to Seattle Hempfest for continuing the 29th year in a row to get such important information out there, and for its adapting from 250,000 people in the park over 3 days to this virtual world. And I really want to thank Larry Serbin, Saba, Tesfay, and Greg Wilson for being with us. The practical takeaway that I want for everybody is some websites and some service. So folks who are interested and listening, the U.S. Hemp Building Association, which is in the process of building lists so that folks can go there as a one-stop shop, is ushba.org, like U.S. Hemp Building Association. Hemptraders.com is where you can go to get, oh my goodness, so many different textiles, including 3 new American-made hemp textiles that Larry has delivered to the United States. We didn't talk about that, as well as Canagrove.com to get the hemp board, the herds, binder, hemp wool, hempcrete kit. please, hempwood.com to get to Greg's incredible offering and repertoire from the dimensional lumber and flooring and picture frames and furniture kits. And if you're a wood turner, that is the site for you if you want to start small. And also, Miss Saba, if you could just give us a few names of maybe some suppliers or service providers.
Sure. As you mentioned, we've got Hemp Traders, Hemp Wood, Canna Grove, up in the Massachusetts area. We have Hempstone, which is Jennifer Martin. We have Colorado Hemp Project that is recently coming up with some herd in the area. Hempitecture for the structural and construction support. And Hempire USA, which is Sergey, our education committee director. And I'm sure we'll be seeing a lot more within the near future. And thank you, Joy, and thank you, everybody, so much.
And Hemp Technologies, of course, is a great place for supplies as well. This has been wonderful. Thank you, everyone. And once again, thank you, Seattle Hempfest.
Thank you, Joy. Thank you, Seattle Hempfest.
Thanks, guys.
Hey, thank you, Seattle.
And the land is dark.